In a peaceful village nestled in the mountains of ancient India, there lived a young man named Arjun. Arjun was known throughout the village for his gift of gab. He had a quick tongue, and his words flowed like a river. He could speak on any subject, whether it was the happenings of the village, the teachings of the sages, or the gossip of the marketplace. While many admired his confidence, there were also those who whispered that he spoke too much, often without thinking. One day, Arjun came across a wise old monk named Bhikku Ananda, who was visiting the village from a distant monastery. The monk was known far and wide for his wisdom, and people would travel for miles just to hear a few of his words. Arjun, confident in his own knowledge and eloquence, decided to approach the monk. He believed he could impress the monk with his understanding of philosophy and life. Respected Bhikku Ananda, Arjun began, I have heard that you are wise and knowledgeable. I, too, have studied many scriptures and have great insights into the world and its workings. Perhaps we could have a discussion, and I could share with you what I know. The monk looked at Arjun with a calm smile and nodded. Of course, young man, he replied. Please, share your knowledge with me. Arjun began to speak enthusiastically, his words tumbling over each other as he expressed his thoughts on life, the universe, and the human soul. He spoke for hours, barely pausing to breathe. The more he spoke, the more he felt proud of his knowledge and understanding. The monk listened patiently, nodding occasionally, his face calm and serene. As the sun began to set, Arjun finally paused. He looked at the monk, expecting praise or at least a sign of agreement. But the monk remained silent, his eyes closed, as if deep in thought. Bhikku Ananda, Arjun asked, somewhat confused, have you nothing to say? Did I not impress you with my knowledge? The monk slowly opened his eyes and looked at Arjun with a gentle smile. You have spoken much, young man, he said softly, but how much have you truly listened? Arjun was taken aback by the monk's words. Listening, he repeated, but I know so much, and I wanted to share it with you. Bhikku Ananda nodded. Indeed, you know many things, but wisdom comes not from speaking, but from listening. When we speak too much, we close ourselves off from new knowledge. True wisdom lies in silence, in the space where we allow ourselves to hear the unspoken truths. Arjun was silent for a moment, pondering the monk's words. But how can silence bring wisdom? He asked, genuinely curious. The monk smiled again. Let me tell you a story, he said. In a forest not far from here, there lived a wise old owl. The owl was known for her great wisdom and her ability to see things others could not. One day, a young bird came to the owl, eager to learn. The young bird was much like you, Arjun, always chirping and talking, eager to show what he knew. The owl listened patiently, and when the young bird finally paused, the owl said, young one, you have 2 eyes to see, 2 ears to hear, but only 1 mouth to speak. Why do you think that is? The young bird was puzzled, but the owl continued, it is because you should observe twice as much, listen twice as much, and speak only when necessary. In silence, you will learn the secrets of the forest. In silence, you will hear the wind's whispers, the rustling leaves, and even the quiet footsteps of the smallest creature. Silence will teach you what your words cannot. Arjun listened intently, realizing the depth of the monk's words. But how do I learn to listen? He asked. Bhikku Ananda smiled. By practicing silence, he said. For the next week, I challenge you to speak only when absolutely necessary. Observe the world around you, listen to others, and in your silence, you will find a new understanding. Determined to learn, Arjun accepted the monk's challenge. At first, it was difficult for him. He wanted to speak up, to share his thoughts and opinions, but he restrained himself. He realized how often he spoke without thinking and how little he truly listened. As the days passed, Arjun began to notice things he had never paid attention to before. He heard the laughter of children in the village square, the gentle humming of a mother singing to her baby, and even the rustling of leaves in the wind. He observed the expressions on people's faces, the body language that spoke louder than words. He began to understand the emotions behind the words people spoke, the joy, the sorrow, the fear, and the love. One evening, as he sat by the river, he heard the soft splash of a fish jumping out of the water. He watched as the ripples spread across the surface, slowly fading away. In that moment, he realized that his words were like those ripples, spreading out, affecting everything around them. But just like the ripples, they eventually faded, leaving only silence behind. He began to understand the power of silence, not as an absence of sound, but as a presence, a space in which the truth could reveal itself. In his silence, he found clarity and peace. At the end of the week, Arjun returned to Bhikku Ananda. "Respected monk," he said with a newfound calmness in his voice, "I have learned much in my silence. I have heard things I never noticed before. I feel different, wiser, perhaps." The monk smiled warmly. "Tell me, Arjun, what have you learned?" "I have learned that silence is not empty," Arjun replied. "It is full of answers. In silence, I have found understanding and peace. I realized how often I spoke without thought and how little I truly listened. I see now that words are not always necessary. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words." Bhikku Ananda nodded approvingly. "Indeed, young man," he said, "silence is a powerful teacher. It allows us to connect with our inner selves, to understand the world around us, and to hear the wisdom that lies beyond words. Remember, silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the space where truth is revealed." Arjun continued to practice the art of silence. He became known in the village not for his words, but for his quiet presence, his ability to listen deeply, and his calm demeanor. People began to come to him for advice, knowing that he would listen with his heart and speak only when he had something meaningful to say. He found that his relationships with others improved. He understood people better and felt more connected to them. He learned to appreciate the small, quiet moments of life, the chirping of crickets at night, the soft murmur of the river, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. He realized that in silence, he had found a deeper connection to himself and to the world around him. He felt more at peace, more content, and more alive. Years passed, and Arjun became a wise elder in the village. People sought his counsel, not because he had all the answers, but because he had learned the power of listening, the power of silence. He taught others the importance of speaking less and listening more, sharing the wisdom he had gained from his experience. One day, a young traveler came to the village and asked Arjun, "Wise elder, how did you gain such wisdom?" Arjun smiled and replied, "I learned to speak less and listen more. I discovered that silence holds the answers we often seek in words. In silence, I found myself." The traveler, intrigued, decided to stay in the village and learn from Arjun. He, too, began to practice the art of silence, realizing the profound impact it could have on one's life. Arjun's life became a testament to the power of silence. He had learned that by speaking less, he had gained everything: peace, wisdom, understanding, and a deeper connection to life itself. And so, the village continued to thrive, guided by the quiet wisdom of its elders, who knew that sometimes, the greatest truths were found not in words, but in the silent spaces between them.